Hi, welcome to Inside Line MX, a web series dedicated to all things motocross. I'm your host, Kenny Watkins. Today, we're going to kick off the first of several episodes concerning your bike's suspension. We're going to start off by doing a full rebuild of a dual chamber fork. First off, let's make sure that we have all of our bases covered. We're going to need a fork rebuild kit, we're going to need some fork oil, and let's make sure that our bike and work area is clean and organized. When working with suspension components, cleanliness is vital to ensure longevity and proper function. Secondly, we'll need the proper tools, some of which you may already have. Others, if you don't, you can pick them up at a local motocross shop or a parts distributor. You will need the proper fork cap wrench and insert, a damping rod retainer, a fork seal driver, a small plastic mallet, a pick, and a set of metric wrenches. Perfect, our bike is clean, we have our tools and our parts, let's get started. Once you've got the forks off the bike, the first thing you want to do is back the rebound and compression clickers all the way out until they lightly seat. Now we're ready to remove the fork cap. Place the fork in a vise, making sure that if you don't have aluminum jaws, that you use a shop towel or other object to protect the fork. Once the fork caps are off, we're ready to remove the oil from the fork. When the fork is empty, place it back in the vise and lightly seat the fork cap in the upper tube. Now we're ready to disassemble the fork. First, remove the dust seal and snap ring from the upper tube of the fork. Now we're ready to remove the rebound clicker assembly. Place the fork upside down on a towel or other pad to prevent damage to the fork caps. Compress the fork and insert the damping rod retaining tool, and using the correct size wrenches, loosen the clicker assembly by squeezing the wrenches together. Remove the rebound adjusting rod and we're ready to pull the fork tubes apart. This is done by compressing the fork about 3/4 of its stroke and pulling the inner tube out quickly against the outer tube. Repeat that step until the tubes are separated. Then remove the fork spring, inner chamber, and spring seat. Place the lower fork tube vertically in your vise, still making sure that you're protecting the chrome surface of the inner tube. Then remove the inner and outer sliders, seal plate, oil seal, and dust wiper. Now is a perfect time to do a thorough inspection of the forks themselves, checking for any pits or scratches in the lower tubes. This can cause premature seal failure, either by a buildup of excess pressure in the main chamber or by damaging the seal itself. It is also a good idea, while you have the forks off the bike, to make sure that they are straight and true. Now we're ready to install our new dust and oil seals. To prevent damage to your new equipment, I recommend using some type of seal saver. You can find these at your local dealerships, and they're definitely worth the $5. Failing that, a Ziploc baggie can work just as well. Apply a light coat of grease to the inside of the dust wiper and oil seal. Install the new wiper and seal, followed by the seal plate and inner and outer sliders. Slide your dust wiper below the vise jaws and seal driver. Then position the fork seal, seal plate, and inner slider on the top of the seal driver. Then, drive them into position by sliding the upper fork tube against the driver until the components are seated. Let's place these tubes off to the side, and when we get back, we're going to rebuild the inner chamber and get these forks back together. Whether you're looking to make a statement or just for something out of the track, Rockwell's got you covered. Worn by Mike Alessi, Justin Barsha, Ken Roxon, and Brock Tickle, you know this company is one that you want to pay attention to. Also, make sure you check out the special edition Jerry McGrath watch. Rockwell watches feature Swiss movement and sapphire crystals, plus their rider series are made by motocross riders for motocross riders, with altimeters, thermometers, and even a heart rate monitor. Check them out at rockwelltime.com and make sure to check out the Rockwell Chronicles at youtube.com/KingRockMedia. Thanks to Rockwell, we're right on time to get started on our inner chamber rebuild. Place the cartridge in a vise, then remove the cartridge cap using your fork cap wrench and insert. Completely compress the damping rod. This will assist in pushing the compression assembly out of the cartridge. Pull firmly, but make sure not to damage the assembly. For now, we're going to set this cartridge aside and take a look at our compression assembly. Clean the assembly with paper towels and carb cleaner. Also, check for any wear or damage on the piston. Inspect the valve and shim stack for debris, bent shims, or a loose stack nut. In this particular case, our valve and shims look really good, but our stack nut needs some attention. It is uncommon for the factory assembly to come loose, but luckily this is easy to solve. Make sure the assembly is secure in a vise and check your owner's manual for the proper torque spec. It is very important you don't over-tighten that stack nut. The shaft is aluminum and can break very easily, and a brand new assembly is going to set you back about $200. After the proper torque has been set, use a ball peen hammer to flatten the threads on the shaft to ensure that they don't come loose again. Now we're ready to fill the chamber. Remember to refer to your service manual for the specific type and quantity of oil. As we fill the inner chamber, push the damping rod through its entire stroke to bleed any excess air from the chamber. To reinstall the compression assembly, place the chamber back in your vise and with the palm of your hand, press against the cap to start the threads. Finish it off with your fork cap wrench and insert. Now we're ready to start reassembling the fork. Start by putting the spring back in the outer fork assembly, followed by the spring seat onto the cartridge, then slide the cartridge into the outer fork assembly. Thread the fork cap in slightly, and then flip the tube upside down onto a soft surface. Compress the fork tube and insert the damping rod retainer. Install the rebound adjusting rod, and during installation it is important to verify that it is working correctly. A properly functioning rod, after being pressed, will provide resistance and will return to its previous position. Now, reinstall the rebound clicker assembly. Start the threads by hand until it seats. Once it's seated, you'll notice that there is a gap between the rebound assembly and the jam nut. Placing wrenches opposite each other, tighten the clicker assembly until the gap is closed. Now, secure the fork in a vise and tighten the clicker assembly itself into the bottom of the lower fork tube. For the last two steps, make sure you reference a service manual for the proper torque specs. To finish off the fork assembly, reposition the fork in the vise and install the seal retainer clip. Then, seat the dust wiper into the bottom of the upper fork tube. Finally, remove the fork cap, and after referring to your service manual one last time, fill the outer chamber with the proper quantity of fluid, then tighten the fork cap. These fork caps are sensitive. They only require about 2 foot-pounds to hold them in place, so don't go crazy or you can damage the threads. And that just about wraps it up for us here this week. But remember to keep tuning in because we're going to continue our coverage of suspension with a full chassis setup and a shock rebuild. And as always, remember to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm out of here.